Oh, well, good evening out there. Well, the sun has slowly made its way down once more, and we can finally get comfortable and have a chat. My name is Eddie Booz, and this is Exit the Matrix. Throughout my life, I have traversed my share of rabbit holes, and like many of you out there, I have seen and experienced some things that I simply cannot explain. I invite you all to consider that this world may not be exactly what we've been told it is, and that maybe, just maybe, we haven't even scratched the surface of the absolute truths that lie before us. That being said, let's get into today's episode. I'd like to invite my guest on, Mr. Stephen Magdaleno. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, man. Good to have you back.
It's good to be here.
Yeah.
It's good to be here.
Producer over here at Pacific Lens, water polo coach over at CDM, is it?
Yeah.
Nice. And he's the gaming producer here, and he produces all the podcasts that we have going on here. So great to have Stephen back on the podcast. The last time we had him on, we did haunted artifacts. Yep. We talked about Robert the Doll and the Dybbuk box and things like that, and we established that you would definitely do things that I wouldn't do.
I might be dead. I might be dead.
Right. So today we're going to get into something a little bit more, I would say, realistic.
Okay.
It's something we kind of see happening, but everybody has these opinions about like why it's happening. But we're going to talk today about I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard this, the eggless society conspiracy, you guys. So this is about the eggless society. All right, so I'm gonna
enlighten me on this.
Exactly. Okay. All right. So imagine waking up one morning and finding out that something as simple as an egg is suddenly the most controversial, hard to get item on the planet. Imagine prices skyrocketing, shortages everywhere, and the news articles suddenly questioning whether eggs were ever good for you in the first place. Now imagine a world where nobody gets eggs. They're replaced, banned, discredited, completely erased from our diets. You'd think, okay, but why? It's just eggs, right? But what if I told you it's not just about eggs? What if I told you this is a part of a much bigger agenda, one that affects food control, population health, and even our ability to reproduce?
It's something that I feel like has been happening over a long period of time, because the way that they're produced, there's no way that's just like natural. There's nothing in me that believes that the things that we consume are truly good for us. And I think this came to light to me in high school. For those out there, some high schools have something called MUN, which is Model United Nations, where you talk about world problems. And for me, like GMOs, that was the first time something like that had ever been brought up to me, and understanding, what genetically modified organisms are and the mass consumption of our society of those products.
Give us a quick breakdown. What is a GMO?
I mean, genetically modified organisms essentially is like, they're not made by whatever it is. It's not natural.
It's
not natural. So we find ways to mass produce something, and whether that's just injecting these plants or the animals, or we go into a lab and we just essentially mutate something that we can just overproduce for the consumption of our society.
Interesting. Okay. So essentially it's just something that's a GMO would essentially be considered an artificial modification to one of our foods in a chemical way or a hormonal way or one of these, something along those lines.
You can see it in like tomatoes, I guess would be like the best one. Like you'll have essentially natural foods can like usually be bigger mutations.
Sure. We've seen those giant.
So, but then when you just see like the normal ones in the grocery store, they're grown in such a specific way that they just fit what you see on the daily basis.
Yeah. And you know what I feel like? You know what industry I feel like jumped on that like first and was like, used that to their advantage? Marijuana. They used I feel like they were crossbreeding things and injecting things into their strains.
I mean, you just look at the names
I mean,
of the ones that are out there, and
I
you're
know.
like, who came up with sour pineapple, cherry pie, diesel?
Yes,
plus?
I'd like to buy him a beer. I'm just kidding.
Who came up with that name?
Right, exactly. But the thing is that they're unbelievably stronger than they were back then.
Yeah.
Like when I was 18, 16, 17, 18, like I was buying weed and it would come in like a brick. It would come in like all compressed together in like brick format from Mexico, and and then a couple years later you could get what was called chronic, and that was like better weed, good weed, green. And then there was like something called mids, and it was like a weird thing where you could get like swag mids or chronic for a while. I don't know why I'm telling you this, but but essentially it's the evolution of the GMO that led marijuana to be where it is. It's the fact that they've chemically engineered these strains and to make them so strong nowadays, and like so thanks GMOs, I appreciate you on that end,
they've done
but
everything.
keep it out of our fucking food, huh?
Well, because they could even go into like right now the big thing is removing like the artificial dyes and things like that from our foods,
Yes.
because they're so harmful and yada yada yada.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like they've been here for so long.
Right. Well, you
Go
see what's happening with like Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
So the Fruit Loops in like Europe or even Canada doesn't have nearly the same amount of ingredients and dyes and things like that as America.
The U.S. is worse. When I went to Greece, I felt great. The food, amazing. Like I went to even McDonald's over there. The burger tasted fresh. The soda tasted like water. So it was just like there's these cultural differences in the areas that you're at. And it's like that to me was a huge shock. Every day I looked forward to the eggs we were eating, the bacon for breakfast, even having a bowl of cereal, coming for lunch, having chicken, pasta, salad, even some fruits with that. I was just like,
real grains, real fruits, real vegetables.
I'm worried for when I go home, and whatever I eat is probably going to destroy me.
I'm telling you, man. And yes, dude. So I think that kind of leads us into today's episode here, is because what we're talking about here is that we're acknowledging right off the bat that our own government, especially here in the United States of America, is pumping us full of things that are not good for us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's being acknowledged not only by people like yourself and myself and people who know about GMOs and people who just are aware.
Yeah.
But I think that that's starting to be more widely acknowledged. I think people are starting to wonder why there's been a mass culling of chickens, why there's been, a huge push to implement GMOs into our diets and things along those lines, and I'll be honest with you, obviously profit is one big reason, but I think that we're going to dive into some other possibilities of some reasoning that might not be so such mainstream ideas.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm a big guy, so I can't really say I always
You're
ate
a
the
big
best or anything like that. Like, I mean, for you people out there, just for reference, at some point I hit 300 pounds. I was very unhealthy. I mean, granted, I'm a pretty tall guy. I'm 6'4", so it's like I was kind of holding it all right. But I had looked at myself in the mirror one day, and I'm like, you gotta fix this. So fortunate enough for me, like I've lost 40 pounds.
Good for yourself.
I
Good
feel
for
a
you,
lot
dude.
better. So there's still a goal to hit.
Question, when you gave yourself that, not just for like myself, I'm quite, but anyone else out there, you need some inspiration in like what he did, and how'd you do that? How'd you lose that 40 real quick? Just like give me a quick insight.
I started to just think about what I was eating. So I mean, for me, my average meal every day was going to Jack in the Box, McDonald's, Taco Bell, Wendy's, Del Taco,
whatever.
Because I was on the move. As a coach, you're always on the move, so you never really have time to sit at home, cook a meal, get yourself ready, and go. It's like I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning. I was going to practice for the next 3 or 4 hours. On my way home, quick little breakfast in the drive-thru. Great, I'll grab that. And then boom, I was going right back to a pool deck. So it was like this constant move. And I know that there's coaches out there with some discipline. They'll meal prep. They'll bring things that they can have throughout the day. But
It was really watching your nutrition. That really brought it down and brought it into control.
One other thing that I also took, which kind of helped as well because it kind of flushed my whole system, I took metabolism boosters.
Interesting.
My metabolism is horrible.
So is that like... So that's not like Ozempic, right?
No. I went to a nutrition store by the gym that I was going to, and I said, look, like I feel like I'm having a hard time here with everything. I feel like I'm just retaining too much water and too much of the things that I'm eating. Like, is there anything you guys would recommend for me to take? They're like, here, take this. We'll start you like the first week you take 1 pill a day, and then you go to like 2 in the morning, 2 at night, and anything and everything that I consumed came right out of my body. There was nothing holding it back in.
Wow.
And then I was sweating a lot too. So it's like I was forcing more of this stuff in my system to just kind of bleed its way out.
Interesting.
And so anytime I worked out, like I would probably have to bring a change of clothes to change into after.
Wow. Interesting. So metabolism boosters, watching what you ate, nutrition, diet, things along those lines.
Yeah.
And, a fair amount of exercise, being a coach, I'm sure, played in factor into it as well. That's dope. All right. So check this out. So let's jump into the eggless society theory here. And let's start with the obvious. What the hell happened to eggs? Not long ago, you could walk into any grocery store and grab a dozen eggs for $2. Then suddenly, bam, shortages. Prices triple overnight. Articles start popping up everywhere saying eggs are bad for your heart and not as healthy as we thought. And then wouldn't you know it, big corporations start rolling out lab-grown egg substitutes right on cue. Convenient, right?
Yeah.
Almost too convenient. All right, so check this out. I'm going to give you a couple of mind-blowing stats here, dude.
Okay, let's see.
In just 1 year, egg prices spiked by over 200% in some areas. The official reason was avian flu. But here's the kicker, dude. Over 50 million chickens were culled to prevent the spread. And yet, somehow, massive companies like Just Egg and Beyond Eggs had their fake egg products ready to go right on time. Now, call me crazy, but this seems to be an orchestrated move to me. Because if you follow the money, this starts looking like a textbook case of food industry manipulation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like we were talking about, food industry manipulation doesn't even need to be as severe as what we're talking about. Sometimes it's just as simple as introducing a GMO.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, what do you think about this? What do you think about the fact that 50 million chickens were culled to prevent the spread of avian flu, and that's causing that's one of the reasons there was a 200% spike in egg prices. What do you think about that?
To us as the consumer, we're never going to know what the market is truly like.
Let me ask you a question. Do you just outright believe that that it was avian flu, why they had these chickens culled?
No, there's things that just don't happen like that. Like there's things that are planned. In my eyes, I think there's something planned with the people who control not only our country, but the world for these outbreaks to happen.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we already have our backup plan ready to go. You just don't plan for something like that to just happen and then have something in production the next day.
Do you know that there were, now I'm just going off of memory here, but there were... Now, again, I could be wrong here, but look into this.
Okay.
The day of or before 9/11, they were running counter-terrorist drills in New York those days for a plane hitting a building. Then the same thing roughly happened in 2007 with the chemical attacks in the subway in London.
Yeah.
They were running counter-terrorism drills for a bioterrorism attack in London the same day or like the day before the actual terrorist attacks happened.
Yeah.
Like what you're talking about, like, can't be or is most likely not a coincidence here. When they're planning for things like that and then it happens, and they tell you in your face, like, we have a plan for this, when it happens, and then all of a sudden one of those things happen and you're like, well, dude, like, why did you have to do that to us?
Yeah.
That's what it makes me feel like. It makes me feel like they did that shit on purpose,
100%. I mean, like, even going back to like the 9/11 thing, you have all these people who own these buildings or these businesses that the day before were like pulling themselves or selling these buildings
selling
off to other people. Then insurance, like things like that. Like
getting major insurance policies like the week of or things like that.
You just don't magically do that.
Right.
Like there's more to everything, and there's something that, at least for where we're at in our lives right now, like we will never, ever be put in the situation where we know what's actually happening. Like, unless you're that, I'm going to say like top 0.1%
elite. Yeah.
Like if you're not those people, you're just going to be an innocent bystander to the destruction that's to come from all these things.
I totally agree.
Even for eggs. I mean, granted, shout out my mom. She buys the eggs, or my grandma, but like, it's kind of ridiculous that you have to go out and it's essentially like $1 an egg. Or you go to a diner now, right? You go to Denny's, IHOP, whatever. Yep. They have a sign, oh, there's a surcharge of 50 cents per egg, no matter what. And it's just like, well, what if I wanted 6 eggs today? I don't want to pay an extra,
yeah, exactly.
$3,
right.
$3 for those eggs. So not only, sure, it might be a gain for these companies, but at the same time, it's a huge hit on the consumer that we have to pay for these magical flus that come up. I'm sorry, but that just doesn't happen. And then the next day you guys are like, well, let's just pull these eggs out the freezer and get them ready to send out to the people.
Absolutely. Anytime the government suggests culling of animals for any reason, I'm very weary. I'm very, very weary. Well, let's ask the $1 million question, dude. Obviously, a society without eggs or a society where eggs are unbelievably expensive is detrimental to us. Who stands to gain from it?
The business.
Bingo. Which businesses?
Whatever egg companies are out there, whatever those people are.
Big agriculture.
Yeah. It's
lab-grown food industries. The more natural food that gets demonized, the more power shifts to corporate-controlled lab food. I mean, who in the world is... It accepts the demonization of natural foods? That's insane to me. If you're listening to the government or the media is telling you that this is bad, like eggs are bad for you, or lettuce is bad for you, or whatever it is, natural vegetables or GMOs are good that's, if you believe that, you need to take a long, hard look in the mirror and start to think for yourself. A lot of times in school, growing up, they teach you what to think, but not how to think. They used to teach you how to think. Even when I was in school, I learned how to think, how to think for myself, how to discern things. But nowadays, it's more like I feel like
it's gentle parenting. I think that's what it's turned to.
If you don't instill values in your kids, schools will. So, but yeah, I mean, fake eggs, fake meat. We already discussed Beyond Egg and Just Egg. I mean, these are fake eggs companies, fake meat, fake dairy, all controlled by a handful of massive corporations. How about big pharma in the health industry? Eggs are one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. They contain choline, a nutrient essential for brain function, hormone balance, and fetal development. If people stop eating eggs, deficiencies skyrocket, and guess who steps in?
Big pharma.
Big pharma. When you don't have enough nutrients and you need to rely on external vitamins or pills or things like that, that's a society that's easily controlled.
Yeah.
Not just unhealthy, but easily controlled.
Every shift that there's always someone to pick it up. So if we have this issue with the food and all of a sudden we're not getting the nutrients, there's already another source waiting for us to come knocking.
Yep, absolutely. And just to illustrate that, walk into any CVS or Walgreens and walk into the vitamin section and just look at all the things, the supplements that you could be getting from your daily diet, your daily nutrition, that you're needing to supplement from just getting sunlight sometimes. Yeah. You're just needing to supplement these things because you don't give yourself enough of these things on a daily basis or even a weekly basis. A lot of times, some of the vitamins you don't even need on a daily basis. You just need to have them in your system. system on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You don't need all those vitamins that you see, don't need to be shoved into your system every single day.
Yeah.
You know,
I really don't take vitamins either.
That's quite insane. Yeah, I mean, diet. Let your nutrition be, be the thing that, brings your body back into natural balance. I know a friend of mine is a doctor, and she said that all of her patients that come, she's a general practitioner, and she said that all of her patients that come to her who are like just generally unhealthy, they always want the quick fix.
Yeah.
None of them want to hear, you got to eat better, you got to work out, you got to sleep better. They all want a pill that'll fix it. They all want a pill that will make them feel less depressed. They all want a pill that will, make them less or make them lose weight instead of just realigning themselves with a healthy version of themselves. And like you said, maybe a metabolism boost can help.
Yeah.
But one of the main things that you did was you watched your diet.
Yeah.
That was one of the main things, and I think that especially with the eggs, people, I'll be honest with you, like, and a buddy of mine, like, I'm not sure if you want to hear this, but I was talking to a buddy of mine recently, and he said, one of my poker buddies, Nick, and he was like, yeah, dude, I've been eating like 6 eggs a day. He said, dude, and he's like, he goes, my erections have been like insane. Like, I'm like, all right, bro.
If it works, it works. Everyone has their thing.
I'm like, hey, bro, we're at Black Angus right now. I'm like about to get a steak. Like, I don't need to hear that shit, dude. Like, So, but the point is that there is something to the nutrients. There is something to what you're getting out of eggs, out of real eggs, and when you deprive yourself of these natural nutrients that you're getting out of eggs and the other things in a normal diet, that's when you have to start turning to these big corporations for your health, for your fixes, to survive, basically. You know what I mean? Like, instead of thriving and being a strong, healthy adult, you have to turn towards corporations to help you survive and fix you.
I will say the only thing,
my muscles better.
Like pharmaceutical stuff that's only been good for me is I have eczema, so I have to take an injection twice a month, and it's like that's the only way I can have a clean face.
Were you vaccinated as a kid?
Yeah,
that's probably where your eczema comes from. Just saying.
Well, my mom
probably.
My mom has
allegedly,
eczema too, so it's just one of those things, and
eczema can get rough.
Yeah,
I had a friend of mine who had a bad.
Yeah, my face, my upper lip, my chin, my cheeks. Like if I itched, like I was like leaking pus out of my face.
No kidding.
On my eyes.
Wow, it was that rough.
It was that rough.
Damn, dude.
So this one too could be a conversation for another episode. I did get the COVID vaccine as well, so we can maybe deep dive into that one.
Pure blood here, baby. All right, so
which is funny enough because during COVID, I was living here in California, and I was also living in Utah.
Sure.
So it's just like, especially in Orange County, there's a lot of indifferences. Well, and in Utah,
you talk about GMOs, man. You know what they're putting into our bodies. The last thing you should be wanting to do is put some random thing that they won't give you the ingredients for in your body.
The person put the needle in my arm. They said, wait 15 minutes, you can go. I was like, all right.
Let me 15 minutes to make sure you're not going to die before you leave here, All right.
My coat in the parking lot.
Yeah, they got like a bunch of people like sitting on a curb over there, like breathing into bags and shit. Just that. But no, but seriously though, like some believe this is bigger than food, to be honest with you. Like we're talking about control,
Yeah.
Cutting out natural sources of choline could be a subtle attack on fertility. And I'm not sure if you've heard this, but birth rates have been going down. Have been like taking a drastic decline lately. And I'm not sure if that's because society has been so crazy and unstable that people are afraid to have kids, or if that's because of because of what we're talking about here, because there's a subtle attack on our nutrients and what we're being fed, and they know that eggs help make you fertile, and that that reducing population growth over time is maybe something that they want. And I'll take it back to this. We did an episode, me and Joel, on the Georgia Guidestones, and I refer to this episode quite a bit. There is a clip in there of Bill Gates talking about how he wants to intentionally reduce the world population by, I think he said like 10%.
Okay.
Or something like that, or anyway, but the way he wanted to do it was with using reproductive health care and vaccines. That is insane to me. I mean, that is absolutely insane to me. And when Klaus Schwab was asking him what he wanted his legacy to be, it was what he was saying was relatively about that. Was he wanted these vaccines and this stuff to be his legacy, where it's like, dude, like if you go to the VAERS report and look at the National Information for Vaccine Center, just look at there and look at the COVID vaccine on its own, look at any vaccine, and just look at the adverse effects from these. They don't tell you about this shit, dude. And I'll send you some studies that I've been reading recently on the correlation between vaccines and illnesses, throughout your life, things along those lines. But it's wild, man. And I'll tell you, if a corporation or the government or any entity can control the food supply, they can control the people. Absolutely.
I mean, to touch on what you said about like the drop in birth rates, I feel like because we're in a different point as well, right? You're a little older than me, and so like it could be one thing for your generation, but I think the big thing, at least for mine, and don't quote me on this, everyone, I'm just kind of speaking for what I see, is it's too expensive to have a kid. There's no way, like I can afford myself and a little bit more of someone else right now, but there's no way I can afford, not only say like I were to be, married and everything like that, to have, the wife, a house, a kid, this car payment, the house payment, health insurance for a family. Like there's no way I feel like that is something that I can do.
I fully agree, and I feel like the government I feel like the federal government in particular, along with other private entities, again, this is my opinion here, such as like BlackRock and things like that, I have made a conscious, concerted effort to make the American dream unattainable for your generation, Stephen. I believe that they have consciously made housing prices too high. I believe that they have inflated the economy in such a way that people in your generation almost need 2 jobs to survive, to even have a place to rent, let alone buying a house nowadays. So I think that you're right. I think that has been a major deterrent for people who are in that generation. And I don't think it's I don't think it's being as acknowledged as I think it could be. I think people in my generation are acknowledging it and are feeling bad for people in your generation. I feel like we are seeing it, and I feel like people in your generation don't see it, almost because you didn't get to experience a more accessible version of the American dream. You're literally growing up into this economy, into this housing market, into these things where it's like where there's so much more control, so much more regulation, that it's almost not only makes you, it's not only more difficult, for you to have a kid in so many different ways, finances, things like that, but it also makes someone jaded on the idea. It makes them feel like, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to bring a kid into this world when, it's so hard for me to survive on my own that, I'm, what kind of life am I going to be bringing this kid into?
I mean, it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, you look at, I mean, you can even go back. But I was going to say, but just to finish that thought, I will say that on the flip side of that coin, life is beautiful. And
you can do it. You can do it. Everybody who I know that's ever had a baby and they weren't prepared have always risen to the challenge. Have always made sure that they provided for that child and their family. And a lot of times, those people, because they've had a kid and because they've had to rise to that challenge, have become the better versions of themselves and have reached potentials that they never saw in themselves. So just throwing that out there. I was just giving the example that some people have that's thought, and a lot of people, especially in your generation, are kind of, they're in the parameters of this kind of view of society. And I can't have a kid. Why would I have a kid, or things along these lines? But but on the other side of that coin, do have children. We need more people on this planet. We need to populate this planet. A lot of people think, oh, we're using all the resources. We need to make sure that we stay a species. So let's keep having kids. But,
yeah. So I mean, like that's the biggest thing. Like if I were to have a kid, I'd make it work. Like there's nothing in me that would just be like, all right, nope, give up, get rid of it, call it a day.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And things like that. And I know that that's still a big conversation that the world is having of, do you keep it? Do you abort it or anything like that? But also at the same time, like there are going to be those people in the older generation like, well, you don't work hard enough. When I was your age, well, when you were my age, your rent was $100. Yes. I'm very happy for you that back then that, sure. Again, the economy's different back then too. $100 was like $1,000 now. So it's like you're waging the options of all that stuff. And so but at the same time, with the work that we have to put in, if you don't own, at least in the state of California, if you don't own your property and you're renting, good luck. Like my mom owns our unit, and people would kill to pay what she pays.
Right. Yeah, no, there is a thing. Like a lot of people I know are grandfathered into their apartments and things like that, and they pay like $1,300 a month in their unit, but their neighbors are just moving in and paying upwards of $2,000, or things along these lines. But yeah, that's a thing. And that's a lot of times that's why people say don't move if you're in California. Don't move because it'll be hard to buy your way back in. But I'll be honest with you, man. California is one of the most overregulated, overtaxed, hostile states to its businesses and its residents that exists. So it's like, I think a lot of times people don't know any different, especially people like who grew up in California. Mm-hmm. They just don't know any different. They don't know that the freedoms exist outside of California like they do. When they go outside of California and they go to states like Oklahoma, and they go to states like Florida, and they go to states like South Dakota or Idaho, and they get to experience like a more tangible version of freedom, they're like, holy shit, like this is America. Like when am I getting this in California? You know what I mean? So I
mean, I will say I did go to Idaho one time, and there's a whole lot of nothing.
There is a lot of nothing out in Idaho, and I like it. I like Boise. I like the area. I like the Caldwell, Nampa, Meridian area just west of Boise.
I went to Boise one time.
The further north you go, the more beautiful and forested and mountainous it gets. But Idaho is full of beautiful hilly areas, lakes, streams. I love, bodies of fresh water myself. I kind of grew up in like camping and things like that. So like Idaho really strike me as a place that is gorgeous, and I like to be. I like the Pacific Northwest in general. Okay. Forested areas, mountainous areas, things along those lines. I'm not too much of a beach guy. Grew up in California, but I definitely prefer those types of places. And I think that, like I said, for people like yourself who are in their 20s, and haven't experienced the types of freedoms that you can have in other states, and you've only experienced a financial almost burden, in living in the state of California. No matter how hard you work or how much you do to try and kind of change that, California always kind of it puts pressure on people. It puts a real pressure on people. So you're right. People your age are having a slightly different life, or having a slightly different experience with the American dream, especially living in California. Now, go out to the state of California and you'll realize that, property values are not quite the same other places.
It was cheap when I lived in Utah.
Yeah, there you go.
Cheap.
There's a perfect example. You get to understand that this is completely different. It's like living in another country here, So the economy here is slightly different, but this is we're talking about resources. We're talking about resources and what, and I'll be honest with you, in California, egg prices were astronomical. So, but here's what they won't tell you on the news about that either, kind of going back to eggs, just so we're clear about how nutrient dense and beneficial eggs are. Okay. They are a biological necessity. Let me say that again. Eggs are a biological necessity. And let me explain why. Okay. Choline equals brain fuel. Okay. It's essential for memory, focus, and preventing cognitive decline. Almost impossible to get enough choline without eggs, actually. There is no supplement that you can take that gives you the same amount of choline that you can get from eating eggs. Eggs are an absolute essential part of the human diet.
Okay.
Fertility. Choline and cholesterol, the thing they tell you is bad, are critical for hormone production. By the way, as far as I know, there's good cholesterol and there's bad cholesterol, but I don't know. Maybe
what's the difference between the
exactly? Let's do a deep dive into cholesterol. All right, so lower choline equals lower testosterone in men and higher infertility in women. Eggs, real eggs have one ingredient. Fake eggs are full of seed oils and synthetic proteins and chemical stabilizers and stupid shit like that. So let me ask you this, Stephen. If eggs are so bad, why have humans been eating them for thousands of years? And why did fertility rates only start crashing in modern times, right as natural foods started getting replaced? Answer me that.
It's set up by the hierarchy.
Exactly. Coincidence? I don't think so.
There's no coincidence.
There's no coincidence here. Exactly. There's a bigger agenda here, dude. And this is where it gets crazier, because if this was just about eggs, I'd say, all right, maybe it's just corporate greed. But when you look at the bigger picture, meat demonized. Raw milk, illegal in many states. Did you know that? You can't get raw milk. In Oregon, when I go out to Oregon, some of the people in the valley where my parents live, where my family lives, this is a very closed off, remote community. It's a fishing community out in the middle of nowhere. It's ranching community, fishing and ranching community. And it's beautiful. And the people in that valley, they grow all their own food. They have their own meat. They have pigs. They have cattle. They have horses. They have everything they need to survive out there. Okay. Now, these people all share. They all get fresh meat. The stores, the local store out there sells fresh meat that they get from, local growers.
Yeah.
Yes, dude. Like, all the vegetables are fresh from our valley. Like, when I very first got there, when my parents very first got there, people would bring in over all kinds of food. And one of the very first things they brought over was a pitcher of raw milk, and it had like the cream on the top, and you had to like scoop the cream off the top and then like pour the milk like out of the pitcher. Like, that's how real this shit was.
Whoa.
It was amazing. It was amazing. And eggs, suddenly a public enemy. Every natural nutrient dense food is being pushed out in favor of corporate controlled, lab grown, processed alternatives. And guess who's funding this shift? Guess.
Who's funding it?
Who's funding this shift?
I feel like it has to be the government.
Well, there's three major funders right now of this. Now, we did talk about one of them is an industry.
Oh, is it the
pharmaceutical industry, making billions off processed food and the health problems it creates? They are funding the alternatives, the corporate controlled, lab grown, the push for that type of thing. Them, big agriculture.
Okay.
The WEF, the World Economic Forum, the worst. Klaus Schwab. By the way, he just gave control of the WEF to a dude who legitimately looks reptilian. I'm not kidding you. Go look a picture of this dude up and tell me that this dude looks human to you. I'm not fucking kidding you. It blew my mind. I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, they're literally just stepping into the limelight now. And Bill Gates, bud. Bill Gates buying up farmland and investing in synthetic food since fucking 1999. Microsoft, baby.
Bill Gates.
Dude, yeah. And so the WEF, they're advocating for a substantial diet with less animal products. But they're the ones who are trying to get you to eat the bugs. They want you to eat cricket stew, dude. They want you to grind up all your crickets and make a cricket burger and eat all that.
I was going to say, I wonder if they're trying to do, in essence, like with this is like a culture shift to things that other places use. Because it's like it works well for them.
Crickets?
Crickets?
Fuck that.
I mean, you go to countries in like Europe and like Eastern Asia and things like that.
We are a prosperous capitalist country. We have cattle. We have pork. We got fucking chickens. We got fowl. We got
But how
lamb.
real is what we're eating?
We got We got whatever, dude. We have the infrastructure to do that. Why the fuck would they want? Why would society? We already know why they want to do it. Why would we be okay with it? Why would the farmers accept the fact that they have to cull their chickens, that they have to cull their cattle? I would say absolutely not. If I owned 500, 1,500 head of cattle and the government came and knocking and said, you're going to have to kill your cows, I'd be like, no, absolutely not. Go fuck yourself. That's just that. I'm not going to cull my cows. I'm not going to cull my chicken. I'm not going to cull 50 million chicken in the United States because they don't like eggs, because they want us to be unhealthy.
They just control it all. So even with you saying no, you might just wake up the next day and they're all dead.
And there's a new Ruby. Well, I might wake up the next day with a new
or you
Ruby
might be
Ridge,
dead.
With a new, one of those instances where the government sieged somebody's property for some reason, know. That happened in Oregon not too long ago, not far from where my parents lived. That I can't remember the family that was happening to, but, but God, what was the name of that family? Fuck. But yeah. Yeah, man, that's exactly what happens. When they come and knock in and they say, you got to do this, and you say no, they make an example out of you. And then the rest fall in line and there's no revolution. There's no people to stand up and say, as a society, as a collective, and say no, no more. You ever see that it's like a meme. It's like a picture, and it's like got the elites of the world, and they're playing a board game on the backs of society. And it essentially alludes to the fact that all we have to do is collectively stand up. You know what I'm saying? To wipe their board clean, to end their game.
But will we?
Will we? No, because well, you know what?
At least in our lifetime, no.
Maybe if you know what, here's to be honest with you, Stephen. I think in our lifetime we may see some sort of issue like that, but I don't think it will be. I don't think it will be voluntary. I think if it does happen, it will be that society will be pushed to it.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form. That won't be just like like I said, a want to do it. I think it'll be like, all right, well, we've had enough. And we're gonna, now we're doing something about it. I mean, it's happened in history multiple times. It happens all the time. In fact, in fact, you saw it with the Revolutionary War. We were tired of living under an oppressive thumb from a monarchy. Authoritative monarchy who was across an ocean, who was taxing us without representing us properly. And so we decided to do something about it. I mean, it took a long time for us to get to that point, but once we did, we stood up. And that was another thing about that is the right to assemble is one of the most essential things we can remember to do as a people. We lose touch with each other more and more the more that these come into our lives, and we text and we don't want to talk and we don't want to call each other and talk to each other about certain things, and instead of calling the person who's an expert in something and asking them about it, you always look it up on Google and find it out. It's like the connection between humanity is getting less and less, not more and more. And that makes it far more easy for governments and powers to control their populaces. However, I will say these are a double-edged sword, because these also allow for the instant access to information that you didn't have before, where the corporate press or the legacy media would tell you one thing and you didn't have a way to find out if that was true or not.
Yeah.
You didn't have a way to research it and find out the information and research and parse raw data, which, by the way, people don't do enough of anymore. But yeah, no, that was a problem. That's not necessarily a problem anymore, but it still inhibits our want to assemble with each other and talk about these things, man. I feel like when things shut down, had business owners gotten together and assembled, they told us you can't get together in bigger groups than 6 or 4. That's exactly why they didn't want us getting together and talking to each other and saying, this isn't right. We need to, as a group, as a collective, say, no, we're all opening our businesses. Fuck you. We're not going to shut our businesses down and have our livelihoods ruined for the rest of our lives and have to figure out something else because the government says so. Yeah. It was proven later on that the NIH made all that shit up anyway. Social distancing, no science behind it. Yeah. Masks, no science behind it. Businesses closing, lockdowns, no science behind it whatsoever. None. So people lost their businesses for nothing. Because one of the big reasons is because they couldn't assemble and talk to each other and get together and say, hey, this isn't okay. We need to change it. Yeah. And that is something that we need to remember and that we're talking about here. Is there ever going to be a societal shift or a societal pushback on what we're eating, on the control that they're exerting over us from what they're making us eat, what they're not allowing us to eat, and I don't know. I mean, I think on a larger scale, I think we may end up seeing some sort of pushback as time goes on. I don't know that we're there yet. I don't know that people have been pushed far enough yet. But as far as dietary stuff goes, I think people still see the availability of these things and they don't necessarily see that there's a war on it. So I don't think that people are putting 2 and 2 together at the moment. I think this episode right here will be kind of an eye-opener for a lot of people because I don't even think this eggless society theory is very wide known at all. Yeah. Most people don't know. When I say eggless society, people are like, what was that? What does that mean?
Well, when you brought it up to me, I was like, I've never heard of that. Right. That sounds the most interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And it really is interesting, dude. But it's kind of scary once you really think about it because, this is about who gets to decide what we eat, how we live and how healthy we're allowed to be,
Well, it's also one of those things that we're just we have to buy into no matter what. Because if we want it, regardless, we're going to buy it.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, it's just something to think about. Let me ask you this, okay? I'm gonna put you guys at a test out there. All of you guys watching, and you too, Stephen, okay. I want you to do something for me too. I'm gonna do it too, and we're gonna come back in a week, and we're gonna talk about the results. Guys out there, anybody who's watching this, I invite you to do this test, okay? So for 1 week, you're gonna do one of 2 things, okay? If you normally eat eggs, cut them out completely. See how you feel. Do you have less energy, brain fog, lower mood, anything along those lines? So do you normally eat eggs, Stephen?
Nope.
Perfect. Okay, I'm in the number 2 category with you. I haven't been eating eggs, so we're going to start eating 2 eggs a day. We're gonna, you know what? Let's do 4.
Okay.
Let's push it. Let's do 4 eggs a day, each of us. You and me are gonna do 4 eggs a day for a week. Okay. And we're going to see if our focus improves, if our mood lifts, or if our workouts get better, okay? At the end of the week, I want to hear from you. I'm going to hear from me, and I want to hear from you guys out there, okay? I want to know if you guys noticed a difference. Was it all in your head, or is there something real going on here? Because the best way to uncover a conspiracy is test it for yourself. Okay, so let's all jump into that this week. Let's have some eggs. If you don't normally have eggs, if you do normally have eggs, don't have eggs. See the difference. Just and maybe it would be worth it to even write it down, morning or at night. What your day was like. If you had any brain fog, if you kind of had any conscious differences, throughout the day. I'm really curious because with all the facts that we went over today, something rings true to me, and that is that if the government tells you not to do something, it's probably something you should be doing.
Yeah.
And if they tell you should be doing something, it's probably something you shouldn't be doing. Usually it's like the opposite. Whatever the government tells you is healthy for you is not. And whatever the government tells you is not healthy for you is. Case in point, the COVID vaccine. Holy shit. Let's just stop there, okay? So, all right, man. You know where I'm at. So,
all right. Before we go though, I got one question on this egg thing.
Yes.
You want to send me $20? I can go buy these eggs to try.
I got you. All right. I'm gonna shoot you 20 on Venmo. I want you to buy a dozen eggs for yourself. Well, it's gonna cost more than a dozen.
I'll go buy a 24 pack. Get
a big pack, and then, all right. They're coming down in price. They're coming down. The eggs are coming down.
I promise they're coming down.
They're the greatest eggs, and they're on their way down in price. I made sure of it myself. I talked to Kroger. I said, your eggs got to come down.
Yeah, I caught the egg out the chicken.
Exactly. So I did it myself. The best eggs only come from me. All right, so maybe, so look, check this out. So maybe the war on eggs is just a side effect of corporate greed, or maybe it's something bigger. Maybe it's about food control, about nutrient deficiencies, making people sick and dependent, about keeping us weak, passive, and obedient. Either way, one thing is clear. When they tell you something you've been eating for centuries is suddenly bad for you, start asking why. Until next time, stay aware, stay questioning, stay awake, and most importantly, exit the matrix. You guys... Thank you so much to my guest, Stephen Magdaleno, today, the awesome producer over here at Pacific Lens. You guys are amazing. And always, guys, remember that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, not the other way around. My name is Eddie Booz, and this is Exit the Matrix. Take care, you guys. See you later.
Take care, everyone.